good afternoon. My name is Illa. I am from the Consumer and Investor Office at the Securities Commission Malaysia. Welcome to today's InvestSmart online series webinar. Today's webinar is entitled Investor Protection, the Role of SIDREC. First of all, we would like to thank you for taking the time to be here today. We are pleased to have with us today Ms. Nurfatihah Nuhazi from Securities Industry Dispute Resolution Center, or also known as SIDREC, to present on the topic Investor Protection, the Role of SIDREC. Allow me to share a brief background on Ms. Nurfatihah. Nurfatihah joined SIDREC in September 2021 and presently serves in the Office of SIDREC Chief Executive Officer. Having graduated from International Islamic University Malaysia with a Bachelor's of Law in February 2020, Nurfatihah underwent her privilege at Mr. Selva Mukia and Associates. She was called to the bar as an advocate and solicitor of the High Court of Malaya in April 2021. Now, please stay tuned till the end of this session as we will have a short Q&A session followed by a pop quiz. Next slide. This will be my final slide. So please do follow us on our social media platform for useful information on investing and latest updates on initiatives. Now, I will pass over to Ms. Nurfatihah to share her presentation on investor protection, the role of SIDREC. Over to you, Fatihah.
Okay, thank you so much, Ila. First of all, I'd like to thank the Securities Commission, SC, for inviting SIDREC to be part of the InvestSmart online series. I'd also like to thank members of the audience for your time in being here today. So today I'll be presenting on investor protection and the role of SIDREC in protecting investors. Okay, so information on SIDREC is contained in product highlight sheets and investment statements. However, awareness of SIDREC remains low among retail investors. In SIDREC's recently concluded Investor Awareness Survey, which we closed on 31st October 2021, only 15% of the approximately 10,000 respondents have heard of us. As such, the aim of my talk today would be to contribute towards raising awareness of SIDREC and the services that we provide to retail investors so that in the event of a dispute with their capital market intermediary, retail investors know where to seek assistance. Now, what is SIDREC and what do we do? So SIDREC is an independent and impartial dispute resolution center established by the SC itself. It was officially launched in 2011 to handle monetary disputes between retail investors and capital market intermediaries who are SIDREC members. We'll elaborate more on SIDREC members in the next slide. So our services at SIDREC are free for retail investors with monetary claims that do not exceed 250,000 ringgit, and a reasonable fee is charged for retail investors with claims that exceed 250,000 ringgit. Before filing a claim with SIDREC, claimants, retail investors, must have first filed their complaint directly with their capital market intermediary. Now, why is it necessary for retail investors to do this before coming to us? It's to provide an opportunity for retail investors and capital market intermediaries to actually come together to try and resolve their dispute by hearing each other's sides, understanding each other's perspectives with a view to maintaining a good relationship between the investor and the capital market intermediary. The bigger goal behind all this would be to serve
Fatihah, you can share back your slides again.
Right, okay. It's disabled, sorry, Ila.
Okay, sorry, you can share now.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I think we got disconnected. But okay, so moving on, the next slide. Okay, so as mentioned before, SIDREC is here to resolve disputes between retail investors and capital market intermediaries who are SIDREC members. So who are SIDREC members? SIDREC members include banks, fund management companies, stockbroking companies, unit trust management companies, and private retirement scheme providers and distributors. Currently, we have 193 SIDREC members. For the full list of our members, kindly log on to our website to check that out. Now, I think a frequently asked question pursuant to SIDREC membership would be whether SIDREC can handle disputes between retail investors and individuals or entity that's not a SIDREC member. Unfortunately, the answer is no, because we can only handle investment-related disputes where the dispute is with a SIDREC member. So this is, it's because of this that it's important for retail investors to deal with licensed capital market intermediaries, because your interest as an investor is better protected that way. Now, moving on to our jurisdiction. So apart from only being able to handle monetary claims that involve a SIDREC member, SIDREC is also only able to handle claims involving certain capital market products. So these 5 are the capital market products around which SIDREC has jurisdiction. So it's securities, unit trust, fund management, derivatives, and private retirement schemes. Now, all this may sound a little too technical, but if you are an individual investor having a dispute with your capital market intermediary, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll just take it from there. Moving on to SIDREC's dispute resolution process. So broadly, SIDREC provides 3 services, that's case management, mediation, and adjudication. Case management is handled by SIDREC's in-house case managers. Currently, we have 1 head of dispute resolution and 5 case managers. Mediation and adjudication are handled by our panel mediators and adjudicators, who comprise of senior practitioners in both the legal field and the capital market. Okay, so at case management stage, what our case managers will do is ascertain further details regarding in relation to your dispute, your claim. They will also ascertain further details from the SIDREC member against whom your claim is lodged. And at mediation, the parties will meet with a mediator present and try to reach a settlement between them, which is fully voluntary. So the matter will proceed to adjudication if parties are unable to come to an agreement at the mediation stage. Okay. Now, at adjudication, the presiding adjudicator will hear the case and pronounce a decision on the dispute. So you see, SIDREC provides 3 services: case management, mediation, and adjudication. But the first stage is again still the retail investor lodging a formal complaint with the member. This is, if you don't do this, you're precluded from coming to SIDREC. So you have to do this first before coming to us. Okay, to better illustrate the dispute resolution process, I'm just gonna, if you may spend some time on this 3-minute video, we'll just check this out.
You have suffered financial loss while investing, and you think your bank, broker, fund management company, unit trust management company, PRS provider or distributor, or their agent or representative is responsible. You need help sorting out the problem or want to seek redress. Where do you go? SIDREC is here to help you start the conversation and reach some resolution. First, lodge a formal complaint with a company that sold or offered you the unit trusts, shares, derivatives, or other capital market product or service. But you're not happy with their response. You have 180 days from their final written reply to come to SIDREC. Or if there's no written response and it's been 90 days since you wrote to them, you don't need to wait longer. You may come to SIDREC even though you haven't received a final response yet. SIDREC first checks the eligibility of your claim. For example, is it within SIDREC's claim limit? Is it against a member of SIDREC? And so forth. If your case is eligible, we begin the dispute resolution process. All information in this process is confidential. We get both you and the member you're complaining against to sit with us and have a conversation. Documents and information will be required from both parties. No lawyers are allowed in the mediation process, as we keep the discussions informal and private. Our mediators are impartial and will hear both sides out and help parties communicate constructively towards resolving the dispute. Two outcomes are possible at this stage. Either both you and the member agree to a settlement, or you don't. If the both of you agree to a settlement, an agreement is signed and the mediation process ends successfully. But if both you and the member fail to reach a satisfactory resolution, mediation has thus failed. But don't worry, SIDREC then proceeds to the next stage, adjudication. During adjudication, parties are given the chance to provide any further information to help their case and ask each other further questions. Our adjudicator will then study and consider all facts and information provided, including the conduct of the parties, laws, and best industry practices, as well as what's fair and reasonable. SIDREC's adjudicator will then make a final decision on the dispute and the monetary claim. If the decision is in your favor, it could be a full award or a partial award for your claim. But if the decision isn't in your favor, then no award will be made. You, the investor, will still have a choice. If you reject the decision, SIDREC will simply close the case and you may seek other legal avenues for redress. If you choose to accept the decision, however, the member has to comply with it. Once the parties have confirmed compliance to the decision, SIDREC will close the case. So let SIDREC help start the conversation towards resolution. For more information, visit sidrec.com.my or call 03 2282 2280.
Okay, so if you missed any part of the video or wish to see it again, or if the audio was not that great, then the video can be found featured on our website for anytime you want to see it again. So now we're moving on to eligible disputes resolved by SIDREC over the past decade of our operation. More than 90% of SIDREC's cases are actually settled at the case management and mediation stages without having to proceed to adjudication. So 90% of cases are resolved, and the overwhelming majority of our cases are actually, of the eligible disputes are actually resolved at case management stage, which means that both parties actually came together and heard each other out instead of their dispute having to go through adjudication, where an adjudicator will pronounce a decision on the matter. So the disputes that come to SIDREC will be categorized into three categories. So the broad areas of these three categories are market conduct, service standard, and members' practices and policies. So subcategories under market conduct disputes will be fraud, defalcation or misappropriation, sales practices and unauthorized transactions. And for service standard, we take in disputes that involve delays, errors, or glitches of online systems, delays, errors, or lapses in disclosure, and other delays or errors in process. For members' practices and policies, the subcategories are fees and charges, disclosure policy, and product development and sales policy. So in the past decade of SIDREC's operation, market conduct related eligible disputes that we received actually rose between 2011 to 2016, but decreased between 2017 until now. So this downtrend in market conduct related cases received by SIDREC may be contrasted against the parallel trend of the rise in financial scams. At another InvestSmart event, the SC chairman actually informed that the SC has received more than 2,000 complaints and inquiries relating to financial scams between January and September this year. So this more than doubles the numbers of previous years. And these financial scams typically involve unlicensed persons or entities or promised high returns with little or no risk at all and are promoted over chat groups and social media and require payments to be made to new bank accounts. I think this was also reflected in the videos played before the webinar. So the two contrasting trends between the decrease in market conduct related eligible disputes received by SIDREC as well as the rise in financial scams stress the importance for retail investors to deal with only licensed capital market intermediaries. As will be illustrated in the case studies to be elaborated later, this is not to say that you will not fall prey to fraud or scam if you deal with a licensed or registered capital market intermediary. The risk is still always there. It's just that if you go to deal with a capital market intermediary that's licensed and registered, that is still an avenue for recourse should you be defrauded or scammed. Okay, now we're moving on to market conduct related eligible disputes. So under market conduct, as elaborated before, there are three subcategories. So there's fraud, defalcation, or misappropriation, sales practices, or unauthorized transactions. So for fraud, defalcation, and misappropriation, that actually makes up 30% of the market conduct related eligible disputes received by SIDREC. Okay, now we're moving on to case studies and insights. So I would just like to caution that these are for illustration purposes only. So because SIDREC handles each case based on its merits and the facts, which are always specific to each case. So at first glance, the facts may look similar from case to case. And in fact, you in the audience may be in the same situation, but we caution that even though the facts look similar, the outcome may still be different depending on the circumstances of each case. So the first case study is where the claimant handed over checks payable to a capital market intermediary to invest in a fund at the choice of the unit trust consultant. In this situation, the claimant did not fill any investment application form, did not receive any payment receipt as proof of purchase of the unit trust, and also did not receive any subsequent documents in relation to the investment. It was later discovered by the claimant that the UTC actually used the checks to purchase unit trust in the UTC's own name. So after the UTC's conduct was discovered, because the claimant actually confronted the UTC, so after the UTC's conduct was discovered, the UTC returned a part of the sum of money that was handed over to the UTC by the claimant. However, the claimant came to SIDREC because the claimant wanted to claim the remaining balance of the money handed over to the UTC. So in this case, the adjudicator found in the claimant's favor, but awarded only a reduced sum from what the claimant asked for, because the claimant was held to be contributory negligent. Why this is so is because the claimant was an experienced investor, and the claimant ought to have been more vigilant when making the investment, and the claimant also ought to have monitored the claimant's investment. So the second case study, in this case, the claimant deposited a check for a large sum of money in the personal account of the claimant's remisier to invest in a fund purportedly managed by a capital market intermediary to which the remisier was attached. However, the capital market intermediary involved was actually not aware of the deposit made by the claimant. So in this case, the claimant alleged that the remisier had represented to the claimant that the claimant's capital was guaranteed, that the claimant would earn a 10% per month return for a specified period, but the remisier did not furnish any documents, and there was no acknowledgement from the capital market intermediary that the capital market intermediary had actually received the claimant's deposit relating to the investment. Further, the claimant actually acknowledged that the claimant had invested in the fund based on the reassuring comments of a group WhatsApp chat to which the reminder also belonged. So it was later discovered that the fund did not even exist, and the claimant claimed for the losses suffered now. So in this case, the adjudicator actually dismissed the claim. Among other considerations, the adjudicator noted that it was highly strange for the claimant to deposit a large sum of money into the personal account of the remisier without question and without even looking or even recording any documents relating to the investment, and not even receiving any documentary evidence from the capital market intermediary itself. So again, this relates to the videos shown by Ila at the beginning of the webinar, because again, the claimant had actually was led into investing in the fund based on a group WhatsApp promotional material in a group WhatsApp chat, which he had relied on. So following the two case studies and also other SIDREC cases handled by SIDREC, so as an investor, some key things that we have to always keep in mind is that do verify that the capital market intermediary is registered under or licensed by the relevant authorities as listed here. Now, in fact, you should go the extra mile and actually confirm whether the representative of the capital market intermediary is licensed or registered, because sometimes the fraud or scam is perpetrated by the individuals, right? In fact, most of the time that is the case. Second, do not hand over cash to your remisiers, UTCs or other agents, or deposit money into their personal accounts. I think this has been illustrated in the videos at the beginning of the webinar, as well as the case studies discussed earlier. And next, upon any payment, do insist on a payment receipt and confirm the statement for the details of all transactions effected. Retain any and all documentary evidence of all your investment transactions. Also, do be alert for red flags in relation to fraud or scam. Now, what red flags may look like are aggressive persuasion tactics, investments sounding too good to be true, the investor being pressured to make a decision or being given extraordinarily expensive gifts. All of this is because as an investor, we have to always keep in mind that no returns are actually guaranteed. So if you're promised something that says the returns are guaranteed, you may want to look further into that before making your investment. Next, you should always be wary of sharing your bank account, credit card, or online investment account details with anyone. And also be cautious when presented with investment advice or tips that are circulated or disseminated in WhatsApp groups or other social media channels by unlicensed investment advisors. If you're in the audience and you actually think you may have a dispute to lodge, you may have an issue with your capital market intermediary which relates to monetary loss, you may want to explore lodging a complaint with SIDREC. How you may do this is by going onto our website at the address sidrec.com.my to download a copy of the claim form. And you can fill in all the details required there. And then you can email the claim form to info@sidrec.com.my. So following this, a case manager shall be in touch with you to assist you and go from there. Okay, so we've reached the end of the presentation. These are SIDREC's contact details. Right now, we don't accept walk-in claimants, walk-in inquiries or claimants because of the pandemic. So what you can do is you can call us and just make an appointment, or just email us and we'll be in touch with you to go from there. Yeah. So that would be all from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Fatiha, for your presentation. Okay, so yes, thank you so much for your informative presentation. Now, I would also like to invite Ms. Sharmila Sharma from CEO of SIDREC, who will also be taking the Q&A session. So if you all have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. There are also questions in the Zoom chat, and
so Ela, I think there is one question on what's the difference between SIDREC and OFS, right?
Yes.
Fatiha, would you like to take that, or would you like me to take that?
Okay, I will try this. Okay, so so OFS, it stands for Ombudsman for Financial Services. So SIDREC is a body approved to handle disputes relating to investments in the capital market. On the other hand, OFS is a body approved by Bank Negara Malaysia to handle disputes in the banking and insurance sectors. So if you have an investment-related monetary claim, you come to SIDREC. But if you have a banking or insurance-related monetary claim, you go to OFS. So that would be the general difference between SIDREC and our sister company, OFS, yeah. Sorry, I see another question asking whether SIDREC is under BNM or SC, and yes, thank you, Mr. Michael. SIDREC is under SC, yeah.
Okay, so there was a question from Teng Sheng Hua. I'm not sure if you guys can disclose, but there's one of the participants was asking with regards to case study 2, did the claimant manage to recover the losses?
The claim was actually dismissed. So no, the claimant was not able to recover the losses.
Okay. Okay, we have one question in Slido. How likely are people able to get 100% of their money back if they go through SIDREC?
So, okay, I'll take this one. There are 3 outcomes that there are 3 different outcomes for any case that goes through the SIDREC dispute resolution process. If it's successful at mediation, then it will be an amicable settlement between 2 parties. So whether it is 100% of the money back, it would be a settlement that both parties will be happy with. If it goes to adjudication, then you will have 3 outcomes again. Number 1 is you may have a full award, meaning that you will get back 100% of your money. Or like in case study 1, you would have a partial award where the adjudicator finds that the capital market intermediary is liable for some of the losses, but also that loss was also partially contributed by the claimant. And finally, as in case study 2, you will have a full dismissal, meaning that you do not get your 100% of your money back or at all if you come to SIDREC. How often do we have a full claim? That would really very much depends on the facts of the case. Yeah, but we have had claimants getting 100% of the money back before, yes.
I believe we also have another question. How long would it take to solve a dispute? So I guess they're asking how is the timeline usually like? I guess it would be different from case-to-case basis as well, right?
Yes, correct. So it really depends on how complex a particular case is. But under our SIDREC terms of reference, we do have a 90 working day mandate to complete a case upon full information and documentation received from both parties. So Ella here, I would like to, seek the cooperation of retail investors to be patient because, gathering information and documents from both sides, the claimants themselves, as well as SIDREC members, it does take some time. And the case managers at SIDREC really do painstakingly look through all issues, investigate all issues before we put forward the case for mediation or adjudication. So while I understand that everyone wants their claims to be settled very quickly, but do trust the process, do trust that we do put in a lot of effort to ensure that whatever the outcome is based on what we call the principles of fair and reasonableness, just to make sure that we handle the cases properly.
So I guess it's fair to say that when investors wants to have their dispute resolved, it's important that they have all the necessary documents and all the information ready at hand to provide to SIDREC in order to, I guess, to solve the case as soon as possible.
Quickly as possible. Yes, totally agree with that, Ila. But what we do find is, I think also understandably so, because claimants are upset by that time they come to us, right? Because they have lost money. So, gathering documents is probably not the first priority that they're looking at. What they want is a quick resolution of the dispute. But yes, definitely, if you can provide us right up front when you are filing your claim form, all the documents, just as Fatiha mentioned, keep all your documentary evidence in terms of your investment transaction statements, your product highlight sheet. It will really help speed up our investigation process.
I think we have another question on Zoom. Do the SE regulated company auto enroll to SIDREC, or do they have to apply?
Okay, so Fatiha, would you like to take this one?
Perhaps you can answer this.
All right. So as Fatiha mentioned at the earlier on in her presentation, we only are very restricted in terms of our jurisdiction. So there are 4 areas: dealings in securities, dealings in derivatives, dealings in private retirement scheme, as well as fund management activities. So any capital market intermediary that falls under these 4 categories, yes, they will be automatically deemed as SIDREC's members, but those that are outside of SIDREC's purview, they will not be under SIDREC.
There's actually a second part to this question as well. Is there any company that didn't join SIDREC but are regulated by the SC?
Oh, okay, so this would be those that are not under the 4 different regulated activities that are under SIDREC's purview. So for instance, financial planners, they are a regulated activity under the SC, but they are not under our purview, so they are not automatically SIDREC members.
We also have another question here. Okay, will SIDREC advise personally on our claims whether we can win the case or not before we submit the dispute resolution?
So no, it is very firmly stated in our terms of reference that SIDREC is an independent and impartial body. So what does this mean? We are equally independent and impartial both for the claimants as well as SIDREC members. And per our terms of reference, the rules of engagement is that SIDREC does not advocate for any party. That's why our investigation process is very stringent. We need to make sure that as much as possible, we find out what actually happened surrounding the claim.
Is there a time limit to bring my case to SIDREC?
Yes, but I have to apologize. I think totally offhand, I can't remember the exact number. I believe it's 180 days when you receive your final response from the SIDREC member. Is that right, Fatiha?
Yeah, I believe it's so. The first step again in the dispute resolution process is the retail investor has to lodge a complaint with the member. So the very last reply in that whole process, 180 days from that final reply, you have 180 days to come to us with that claim. So yes, 180 days.
Okay, and I think someone in the audience probably more familiar with this. So if there is no response from your SIDREC, the SIDREC member that you have lodged a complaint with, will be 90 days from the date of your complaint. And if there is a response, it's 180 days from the final reply from the SIDREC member.
Okay, thank you so much for all this information. Let me just quickly check if there are any other questions. Okay, if my case is currently in court, can I still go to SIDREC?
No. So that would be an excluded dispute. We do not take in cases that are currently in court. Yeah.
And I think we have enough time for one more question here from Victor. Is there a timeline or deadline from SIDREC to come back to claimant on dispute case progress?
Yeah, so there is no hard and fast rule for this, but our case managers will contact the claimants as soon as the claim form is lodged with us. So I believe we try and do that within 3 working days to at least acknowledge receipt of your claim form. And thereafter, the case manager will work together with the claimant and the SIDREC member to investigate the case and to move the case along. As I said, we have a 90 working day timeline in the terms of reference, but that begins from the date when we have received all information and documentation from the claimant and the SIDREC member.
Okay, sorry, I think we have one more question. This will be our last question for today. If a fund manager fails to make disclosure to the investors of details of their investment and fails to give regular reports for years on how the investments are doing, is this type of complaint handled by SIDREC?
Okay, without further details, I cannot say for sure, but it would be something within the realm of what we look at also. But I think I would like to caution here as well. I mean, I think both in case study 1 and case study 2 that Fatiha highlighted, it will be a red flag, I would hope, for the retail investor themselves that, if they have made an investment, say in a unit trust or, private retirement scheme, and they're not receiving any investment transactions, I would say, please do not wait till 2 to 3 years down the road. I think you will need to get in touch with either your agent, or if you can't get in touch with your agent, go direct to the fund manager or the PRS service provider, and distributor to obtain your investment transaction, because I think you've seen SE has already informed all of us that we need to be very vigilant in terms of monitoring our investments, and I think our 2 case studies shows that the need to be very vigilant in monitoring our investments. So if you have not received your regular reports, your statement of transactions, I would say please do go back directly. If you can't get your agent, go back directly to the company or the capital market intermediary that manages your fund.
Okay, thank you so much, Shamila, and thank you, Fatiha, for speaking earlier. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and Ms. Nur Fatiha and SIDREC for speaking in our webinar. Don't forget, if you wish to watch our webinar again, we will upload the webinar on our YouTube channel in due course. Do also check out our previous webinar sessions on our YouTube channel. Before we end the session, just a quick reminder to all, always check that you are dealing with an authorized company and/or individual. Also remember to never ever deposit money into individual bank account, even if they are licensed or registered with authorities. With that, stay safe, stay at home, and if you need to be out, always maintain physical distancing. Hope to see everyone again at our next and final webinar for the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ila.
Thank you so much, Shamila.
Thank you, Ila. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Fatiha.
Bye.
Bye.